Hello. Thank you for watching You Had Options and listening. This episode, I have Jeff Berman of Divided Heaven on. It's a great conversation. He's got a encyclopedic knowledge of wrestling, and I love it. We talked about wrestling a lot. We talked about Divided Heaven, what's going on with them. They have a new single out called The Filthy 15. Check it out wherever you listen to music. That's great. It reminds me of Ted Leo for some reason. Yeah. Go find Divided Heaven on Instagram. It's at Divided Heaven. Go find us on Instagram at youhadoptions. Go follow the Twitch. Trying to get 50 followers on there to become an affiliate, which is exciting. Twitch.tv/youhadoptions. Rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff. I appreciate everybody who listens. Hope you enjoy. Jeff, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. How is your weekend going?
So far, so good, man. So far, so good. I've caught up on SmackDown, and I'm good to go.
Do you keep up with all the current WWE stuff?
Yeah, I do. I don't know, that's a little blurry here. I'm not very good at watching on a weekly basis,
yeah,
but I do make sure that I know what's going on.
Yeah,
for sure.
Do you follow?
And I've been trying to do this thing where I don't watch SmackDown on Friday nights. I try to watch it on Saturday mornings, so it feels like it did when we were kids when we would watch wrestling on Saturday mornings.
Right.
It's kind of a nice throwback treat.
Yeah.
To have in the morning.
Yeah. Do you follow like Squared Circle on Reddit and all that good stuff? Are you super into?
No, I go to eWrestlingNews.com once a day to get caught up on stuff, and they're kind of an aggregate site for F1 and Raja and whatever's on the Reddit boards. But I don't know. To me, those Reddit boards, every time I've seen it, I'm just kind of turned off by the snarkiness of the marks. So
yeah.
I don't dig that deep. And also, I find that I enjoy the product more when I know less. I think that's something that a lot of people forget, is that just because all that information is out there, it doesn't actually make it more enjoyable for you when you're watching the actual product. So I try to... I'm not going to say that I live a kayfabe-only lifestyle. That would be a little bit extreme. But there are definitely spurts where I actively try to stay away from any rumors, spoilers, prediction, anything like that. And I can just kind of talk about it with close friends of mine.
Yeah.
And get the fix.
It's funny how like wrestling fans, people like that on Reddit, or that sort of like personality, it seems like they hate wrestling almost.
Yeah.
It's weird.
I can't hate watch something.
Right.
Like, I'd rather just not watch.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not crazy. He's warmed up to me, but I'm not crazy about the new Raw announcer, Adnan Verdict.
Okay.
Is his name? Adnan is his first name. I'm blanking on his last name. But I actually had to turn off for a few weeks because I was like, this is not enjoyable. I think this has actually changed the channel. Not good.
Yeah.
And so now that I tuned in, he seems to kind of learned how to ride the bike a little bit better, and it's a little bit more enjoyable. But if there's something on that I'm really not into, I'll just turn it off and come back to it in a couple weeks. And that's what's great about wrestling. It's not, gonna get canceled.
Right.
It's not gonna get thrown off the air like so many of our favorite shows do. if we don't watch. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you keep up with like AEW as well, or
I keep up with it because I have friends that do, but I don't personally. No, I found their product from the get go to be, how do I say this diplomatically? It's the cool kids table.
ooh, yeah, that's good.
The nicest way I can put it is, I'm not, in the same way that I'm not interested in a whole lot of the McMahon storylines in WWE, I wish that it was not public knowledge that Omega and the Bucks and Cody had, or at least maybe Cody's an exception, but I wish I didn't know that they were all integral parts of the business of AEW, because it just kind of turned the whole prospect of the company into a reality show. And all of a sudden it kind of felt like it was a reality show about wrestling more so than it was about a wrestling show. And I think they've gotten better at that over the pandemic, especially. They've definitely fine-tuned their craft a little bit, but no, man, I there's very little I like on that show, so I just don't tune in.
I feel you. Yeah. You know, I tried to keep up with their like YouTube show before AEW was a thing, and it felt very like this is way too inside, too many inside jokes that I can't keep up with. And yeah, I get that. Cool kid, that's a good analogy. Cool kids table.
Right, it's like you sit down at the table and you're laughing at their jokes, but you don't get the jokes.
I don't get the jokes, man.
Don't get the jokes, you know. I mean, I respect everybody in that being the elite circle, but I think that they've taken their, for me, I think that they've taken their brand of humor to a level of cosplay that to me isn't wrestling. It's I'm not gonna say it's not entertaining, because it certainly is, and a lot of people really like it, and I give them credit for the acumen that they have in order to use that platform to buy homes and feed their kids, have a great lifestyle.
For sure.
So I'm not taking anything away from them in terms of that. However, just from an entertaining perspective for yours truly, that's not the brand of wrestling that I like. So, you know.
I feel you. Have you been watching Dark Side of the Ring?
I just was watching my first one of this season anyway. My first one before I jumped on this call. I was watching the Collision in Korea one because I remember watching that pay-per-view.
Really?
So I wanted to see the behind the scenes. Yeah, it's pretty wild. I don't know. I'm pretty tuned into anything about North Korea. I'm very fascinated and disgusted by the way that they treat their people. And it's the kind of thing, as I'm watching this Dark Side of the Ring, I realize too that, man, you don't want a firsthand account from people who are in the wrestling business. People who are in the business of working everybody and constantly working. Like, I don't want to hear about being detained. I don't want anybody to be detained by North Korean officials at all. But I don't want to hear about it from Scott Norton, who's a professional wrestler who's working the gimmick.
Storyteller, yeah.
Yeah. How about you? Have you enjoyed that show?
Yeah, I loved it. I just watched last night. I watched the Collision in Korea one. But it's like you're saying, getting firsthand stories from wrestlers who fabricate, or just like they like to tell a good story, instead of the truth. Most of the
Too
time.
Cold Scorpio was like, I had a hawk's eye 2 inches out of his socket.
Right.
Man, you just killed,
making a shiv out of some.
Yeah, you just killed the whole thing. You just ruined this. Like, now I'm not going to believe anything you say. You had hawk's eye 2 inches out of his socket. Come on.
But it's crazy. The people were pretty much forced to be there, but like 90,000 people.
I remember ordering the pay-per-view specifically for that reason. My friend Jerry Hess, who was my wrestling friend when we were kids,
Yeah,
he said, I'm not really interested in this pay-per-view. I don't really care. I think the only match that we knew was happening was Antonio Inoki versus Ric Flair, and at that point, it just kind of felt like a, like a geriatric fest, and we weren't interested. But I remember in the description of the pamphlet that our cable company would send us at the beginning of every month, it said crowd expected to be over 100,000 people, and I was such a mark at that point that I thought, if they're gonna break the 93,000 Pontiac Silverdome WrestleMania 3 record, I need to be part of it on pay-per-view because I can't be there, obviously. And so we tuned in, and I remember distinctly we went outside and played baseball or played catch or something for a few, like an hour and a half, and then we came back in and we watched the Inoki and Flair match, and Inoki went over, and I was like, well, all right. I think this was all just meant to be I didn't understand the spectacle of it from a political standpoint when I was a little kid, but when Inoki went over, I realized that this is some sort of goodwill ambassador something. This wasn't a real pay-per-view. It's not going to have any consequential outcome to what's happening on the weekly show next week or anything, but goddamn, man, Ric Flair is the GOAT. He's done everything.
He's the best.
He's done everything. Yeah.
Now he's doing rap songs.
There's no stopping him, man.
No.
He's cashing those checks. That's all that matters. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite like Ric Flair match that pops in your brain?
I mean, the easy one to go to is him versus HBK, his last match.
Ooh, yeah.
WrestleMania 24. I really liked the Rumble match that he won in 1992, and some people might say, well, that's not technically a Flair match. Well, he was in it from practically the very beginning. He was in it for over an hour, so it was an interesting Flair match, and I feel like it's kind of a greatest hits of his entire career encapsulated into one match. And of course, the stuff versus Sting in the late 80s, the stuff versus Steamboat in the late 80s, but I don't know. I don't go back to his matches very often. If I say to myself, I want to watch wrestling, old wrestling, I typically don't go back to Flair stuff for some reason. But
what's your go-to old wrestling?
I remember very vividly really good matches that were kind of mid-card matches on WCW pay-per-views in the mid to late 90s. So the feud that Savage and Diamond Dallas Page had, I think they had 3 or 4 pay-per-views in a row. That was their program, and those matches are all good.
Yeah,
they stand the test of time, and they're interesting, and it was kind of Savage putting DDP over and bumping him up to that next level. So I'll go back to that. Always, I don't know if you're like this, but I tend to watch wrestling seasonally, in part because we've been trained to. So every January, as soon as January 1st comes, I'm watching Royal Rumbles all January until the Royal Rumble happens. And then I'm watching old WrestleManias. I really miss... I love that they're in big stadiums now, and it looks fucking awesome.
Yeah.
But I miss the grandiose, majestic feel of some of the first few. So I'll go back to 1 through 6 and just kind of watch tidbits of it here and there.
Yeah.
I'll actively try to avoid having to watch anything with Donald Trump in it, from 4 and 5. But those 2 WrestleManias looked and felt really cool. Like that building looked really nice, and all the drapes and the lights, and so I'll kind of go back, and then we're slowly but surely inching up towards SummerSlam. But these April, May, June months, I feel like that was when WCW did really good work, because they were, if Starrcade was their big thing, that was always around Christmas, so they kind of had to make their show better within that WrestleMania hangover sort of time frame that the WWF was. So Spring Stampede, Super Bowl, Spring Stampede, Uncensored, Slamboree, those pay-per-views as a whole were not that memorable, but there were good matches. Like Kevin Sullivan and Chris Benoit had a series of great matches one year throughout that run. DDP and Savage. Yeah, it's just kind of good, like more obscure. I don't know. If I'm going to go obscure, I find myself going WCW.
Yeah.
If I want something specific, I'll kind of go back to WWF stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. That's if I'm just looking for something to watch, I'll usually just pick a random like Nitro and just put it on.
Yeah. And I'll give AEW that much. I feel like with Dynamite, they've tapped into that unexpected surprise, we're live, anything can happen feeling that Nitro had, that Raw just doesn't. Raw just kind of feels like a live action soap opera. I mean, all wrestling is that, but Raw really feels to me much more of a, I don't know, like a pre-produced TV show. It's like really slick,
polished. Yeah.
Yeah, and so much is so that SmackDown feels just a little bit grittier, and it's the same company. And then NXT is a little bit grittier than that.
Yeah.
And then NXT UK is kind of like, what is even happening? But AEW has that what's the word? The spontaneity that those Nitros had. So I share your sentiment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to me though. Well, it's not crazy, but the nostalgia. There's like a weird nostalgia. I guess maybe a problem in wrestling, where especially with like AEW, like signing, like 60-year-old people to wrestle. How do you feel about that?
It's not comfortable for me to watch
Right.
Sting wrestle. I think that the way that they use Arn Anderson and Tully Blanchard and Jake Roberts is really cool, because it's this mentoring sort of guidance / advocate / manager, and it's cool. I think that there are people, but also like at least with Tully Blanchard, he looks so different. I think it would take for someone who hasn't watched wrestling since 1983, for them to turn on AEW and say, "Oh, that's Tully Blanchard."
Yeah,
it's probably not happening because he looks so different and it's been so long. But it doesn't change the fact that I think he's effective in getting his younger talent over, as they all are. In terms of seeing them in the ring, not so much. But more power. If Sting's healthy to do it, who the hell am I to say don't do it? But if he's going to wrestle, I would like to see him wrestle in a WWE capacity. But that's just me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man, you're like a wrestling like historian. You're just
part-time wrestling.
spouting off years and specific,
I mean, with the exception of music, it's the only thing that, I guess in my family, it's like the only thing I've really loved. I've gone through phases in my life where I'm really passionate about baseball and following baseball.
Yeah.
And then I'm out of it. I've gone through periods of life where I'm really into, figuring out guitar tones and guitar pedals, and then I run cold with that. Or skateboarding and BMXing. I don't know, but wrestling has kind of been a constant for me. And now it's something that my family enjoys. My wife loves it, and I hope that my son will at least tolerate it enough to watch it with me. Either way, he's going down. Either way, I'm going to put the moves on him, and he's going to... it's going to be a few years till I put him over.
He's got to pay his dues. He's got to coach.
I gotta establish an undefeated streak, at least for a few years, so that when he does win, it like means something.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, I hope your son enjoys wrestling, man.
And if he doesn't, that's okay too. Then my undefeated streak will just last
forever.
That much longer.
Oh man, but you are a musician, and so
that's true. That's true.
Man, you just came out with a new single.
I did.
Filthy 15.
The Filthy 15.
Ooh, I liked it, man. I was listening to it. It reminded me of like Ted Leo a little bit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, I noticed you've been putting out a bunch of singles this year. Are you working towards an album or?
Yes,
Yeah.
but I can't talk about it yet.
Okay.
But yes, I am. I've been working for a live streaming production company. Been working for them remotely. They're based in Nashville. I'm here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and for personal reasons, I have not been able to travel this year. So my team in Nashville has been holding it down. One of the things I've been doing has been conducting interviews like this. Really, I developed an interview series called Hello Hangs, where we interview, people that are involved within the industry who suffered because of this pandemic, but also a number of the musicians that we had on our stage throughout this year. We've kind of changed our model a little bit, so we're not doing as many shows as we were last year. We're kind of focused more on quality rather than quantity, if you will. But the reason I mention that is because I found myself interviewing a lot of musicians that were not musicians that I was familiar with or accustomed to sharing the stage with. These were people who were contestants on The Voice or American Idol.
Oh, okay.
Had won contest, or were just kind of from the Nashville ilk, where they're focused on a different segment of the music industry than we are. And something that I would ask all of them was, all right, you have full-length records, you have EPs, you have live stuff, you have singles. What do you think is the best way to release music in 2020, 2021? And there's no wrong answer, so just riff. Right. And the answers that I got from them were varying degrees of articulate and interesting. Yeah. But something that I picked up on was that there was a common understanding that singles are the way to go because of how it affects the Spotify algorithms and how they are able to kind of work the system. Yeah. And I mean that in a positive way. I'm not disparaging any of them. But, we're in an age where somebody can have 3 million plays on a Spotify single, but they can't draw 10 people to come see them at the Hotel Cafe in Hollywood. And that's understood that that's okay. So to me, that's really backwards.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the singles that I've released, they've all kind of had a purpose, and I've allowed myself the resiliency and the versatility to let them have an individual purpose whilst not having an expected outcome. And that's been interesting, difficult at times, but for the most part, it's been liberating. So it's a very long-winded way to answer a very simple question, but the singles have been, if nothing else, kind of an experiment, an exercise in, giving a fuck about how my music is perceived in 2021. And they've all been received. I mean, we're a little, close to the time frame this, because Filthy 15 came out, 24 hours ago. But so far, they've all been received very differently. And I think that's really interesting. And if it was all on a record, that diversity in reaction probably would not have happened. It probably all would have been lumped together. But I say that, but we'll find out in the fall when the record actually comes out. So we'll see.
Okay. Yeah, it's that's something I've thought about with, obviously like rappers. It's all like singles, like albums are like secondary, and and so I've always thought, what if you just pump out singles? See how that would work, because it's tough. Like you're saying, songs get lumped together in a full length or an EP. So it's interesting.
My last record, Cold War, was 13 songs, and I found myself going back through it we've all had a lot of time. Most of us have had a lot of time on our hands in the last year to kind of rethink things.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I rethought was, all right, my first record was 10 songs. My second record was 12 songs. And my longest record.
Yeah.
I think my third record was 13 songs. And now my next record, the fourth record, is going to be 10 songs. So it's trimming the fat, refining the focus, figuring out what actually makes the most sense. And there's really no right answer to it. I mean, the last Smashing Pumpkins record that came out last year was like 19 songs, and it was an hour and 24 minutes or something.
Yeah.
And it was cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's so long, you know, I forgot what it was like to get lost in a record like that, and I really enjoyed it. But, you know, Billy Corgan he has the equity with a fan base of tens of millions,
right?
And you know, I'm trying to reach like a 10,000 capacity,
right?
You know, so it's a little bit of a different fight for me. But I found myself going back through my previous two records, and I'm like, all right, if I had to make them 10 songs today, what would I have done? And every day, or every time I did this, I kind of came up with a different list. And I realized that, you know, I think that's part of the joy of putting out music, is that, like, you try to put together something that's good for the consumer. You try to put together something that makes the label happy or management happy. And with this new record, I kind of just, like, I didn't really care what anybody else had to say.
Yeah.
Like, I work with great producers that are good friends of mine, didn't give a fuck what they thought. My manager is my best friend, didn't even ask his opinion. Record label that I'm going to be working with, I'm so excited to be working with this label. I can't wait to talk about it in the future. But I don't want to hear what they have to say. If they have an opinion about, like, what should be the singles, I'm all in. Yes, let me know what you think. But if they're like, I don't know if this song makes sense. No, it makes sense because it doesn't make sense. And I think coming to that, that was one of the benefits of kind of doing these 4 singles, is like kind of coming to that realization that you can make sense of the absurd, or maybe that's not the right word. You can make sense of the unexpected a little bit more than you can make sense of the expected sometimes. And so I'm just kind of trying to ride that wave and see where it takes me, you know. So we'll see.
Yeah, that's exciting. You're blowing my mind here. The expect, you know, I can't even remember what you just said.
It's too early, I guess.
Yeah,
the coffee's not hitting it.
No. Yeah, man. So I'm in.
Well, I mean, I think you reach a certain point where, like, I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm like a presumptive established.
No, man.
You know, like, on one hand, people know who I am. On the other hand, like, nobody fucking knows me. But there's been a few times during this process where I've said to myself, like, nobody's buying, like, relatively speaking, nobody's buying music.
Yeah.
People are buying records, and I have proof that people have bought a decent amount of Divided Heaven records, for which I am incredibly thankful.
Right.
But I cannot prove that they're listening to those records. For all I know, they could just be sealed up, sitting on a shelf somewhere in their house.
Right.
And so, do I make the decisions about a record or how I'm going to release music based on that? Or do I do it based on, you know, what could be potentially good for the next round or the next record? I feel like I spent a lot of years thinking about these fictitious record label executives or high-end management companies who are going to be like, ooh, maybe we'll pluck somebody out of obscurity today. Maybe it'll be this guy with a weird, stupid, religious-sounding band name. Maybe it'll be this Berman guy with the Divided Heaven thing.
Yeah.
Ooh, let's see what his Spotify page looks like. And it's like, no, like, you know, I've cultivated, like, a good small following, and I've worked to try to make them happy and myself happy with rolling out music in this very unconventional time.
Yeah.
and it could prove to be a transitional time. But you're right, like people from the hip hop world have a different frame of mind than people from the punk world, and people from this Nashville world that I was experiencing in these interviews. I felt like they were giving me veiled responses, but underneath the cloak of whatever veneer they were trying to push on me, they were essentially saying, yeah, singles are the way to go, because if you release a record, 2 songs get paid attention to, and then the rest of them get forgotten about. So I'm trying to simultaneously work that angle and also prove it wrong. So we'll see. I don't know.
Interesting. Do you record all the instruments, or do you have other musicians come in?
It honestly depends on the song.
Yeah.
I mean, Divided Heaven has been a mess, a beautiful mess of personnel.
Yeah.
Because it started as a solo endeavor for me, and then at times it's blossomed into a band. I had one of my good friends, Nick Moriali, was my drummer for a number of years, and then he's still living out in California, and I moved, so we're not playing together anymore. But with the exception of Nick on drums, it's been a lot of different guitar players, a lot of different bass players, and so in the studio, I've done all the guitars, I've done all the singing, with the exception of obvious, guest appearances or whatever. But I've never done any drums, and I don't think I've done any bass yet. So it's just, I don't know, every song is somewhat different, and the Filthy 15 is a great example of that. It was kind of tracked a few years ago, so it doesn't even represent like the lineup necessarily that people saw the last time Divided Heaven did a nationwide tour at the end of 2019. So, it's different every time.
That's exciting. Yeah. Well, it could be I guess it's exciting, but it also could be stressful, having so many different moving parts, I guess. Do you like the constant like changing? Is that a thing you enjoy? No, you hate it. Yeah, I would be
from a logistical standpoint. No, from a touring standpoint, no.
Right.
From a recording standpoint, I do like it, because I think that makes it more interesting. I just had to do, all the liner notes for the new record.
Yeah.
And I could have just put like names, but I was like, no, like every song is actually different enough in terms of who did what and who produced what, that it deserve it. People deserve that sort of recognition. For the people that are still reading liner notes, like I am, I think the players that were on my record deserve that recognition. And it's worth noting that, Nick, for example, Nick Moriali is on these certain songs on the record, but he's not on these other songs.
Yeah.
So that person doesn't get neglected, and so but from a touring perspective, no, like I hated that. Having somebody come in halfway through the tour, picking them up at the airport and being like, "You ready?" And they're like, "I think so."
Yeah.
All right, should I drive you back to O'Hare and then tell me you're actually ready? Like, are you ready or ready?
Man, yeah, I can't imagine. That's stressful. Yeah. I think I've got some like lightning round questions I would like
Sweet.
to ask.
Go for it.
Let me see. This has become a trend on this show of asking, just kind of like spitting.
Yeah,
off.
I didn't get through all of Miguel's interview, but I did like that. I saw Sal Medrano's, who
Oh yeah.
I like that dude a lot, but he and I have a interesting history. And then who else? I guess it was Daniel from Rebuilder as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I think those were the first few that I had heard.
Yeah. Yeah, Sal is.
And Jordan Schroyer too. Jordan from
Jordan.
Virginity and Teenagers.
Yeah. He talking to him, he was actually like, you know what? You should have Jeff Berman on. I was like, I should.
Oh, cool.
I'll hit him.
Jordan
up.
is a nerd, a fellow nerd that I love his appetite for music. I find it so inspiring, and he's always been like that as long as I've known him, which has maybe been 10 or 12 years at this point. But he's just he's always focused on the collective. He's always focused on being inclusive. He's always the first one to want to buy a record off you, and like, I mean, it's a ferocious appetite for new music. And you know, and everything. But I think it's really easy, especially in an age of a lot of vinyl reissues, where people are like, I'm gonna buy Punk and Drublick for the 14th time. It's like, who cares, you know? He's the one who's doing that, but also taking a chance and ordering a record from an obscure band, you know, that's like just put out their second 7-inch and they're from Pittsburgh or something.
Right.
So I love that about Jordan.
Yeah. People like Jordan. It changes like the energy of a conversation, or like just having somebody like that around, where, you know, it's so easy for people to just be kind of like pessimistic turds, you know, and you get somebody like Jordan, and it's just a total energy changer.
Yeah, and I was thinking about the last time I really spent time with Miguel. We haven't spent a whole lot of time together, but we were on Warped Tour the same year. Yeah. And I was solo at that time, so I did a bunch of shows after Warped Tour ended. And one of the shows I played was in Laramie, and he was still living in Laramie at the time. And I thought of it because there were a couple times during your interview where he referenced his 2 young kids. Right. And I was like, oh, like his life has changed a good amount. But the last time that I feel like I had a conversation with him, it was outside the bar in Laramie. And he's like, Jeff, we're going to get fucking wasted tonight. And I was like, cool. That's cool. Right on. He's like, no, like,
you don't get it.
Blackout wasted. Like, we're going to regret what we do. And I was like, okay. And then he said it again in like a more stern way. He's like, no, I don't think you understand.
You don't get it.
Get regrettably wasted. And it like scared me. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm going to go take a whiz. I'll be right back. And I was like kind of avoiding him for the rest of the night.
Man, you might have ended up signing a high interest long-term loan, you know, maybe getting a timeshare with Miguel, something.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We might have been doing yoga naked together on the University of Wyoming campus or something. But that wouldn't have been that regrettable, I guess, compared to any sort of financial investment.
Right. Co-signing. Yeah. Is there a newer band that you've been listening to recently, or is there like a new to you band that you've enjoyed?
That's a better way of framing it, because I don't actually know if they're new to me. There's this great new band called the Beatles that I've been listening to. They're fantastic. Who knew they had such a storied catalog? Yeah, there's a few artists that are new to me that I don't actually know how long they've been doing it. Yeah. A great singer-songwriter from Canada named Kathleen Edwards. I think she's probably been doing the game for about 15 years. Mm-hmm. I really like her records, and I had not discovered that before a few months ago. Emily Davis and the Murder Police out of El Paso. She's been doing stuff forever, but I think this Murder Police band is relatively new. Yeah. And their new songs, their new record is coming out, I think, this week. And their new songs, the singles have been great. Lipstitch, this band called Lipstitch, a female-fronted punk band, are fucking great. Okay. I gotta look at my list here. I've been trying to keep a better list. There's a band called Low Cut Connie that are not new at all. Okay. They've been around for 10 years, a Philly band, but they're relatively new to me. I really like his records a lot. So I think that might be, I'm sure there's more, but that's all that's coming to mind right now. Mm. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
How about you? What have you got for me?
Who have I been listening to? Well, when I work, have you heard of this kind of like lo-fi synth band called Home?
I have. I have not heard their music, but I saw their record. Yeah.
Yeah. I listen to them a lot. me see. Let me pull up my Spotify real quick. It's tough.
That's what I'm looking at.
It's
right
tough
now.
to remember. When somebody asks you, when somebody's like, "Hey, what's your favorite band?" It's one of those questions where it's like, I don't know.
Well, I can tell you, my favorite band is Bad Religion, so there's no surprise there. Oh, I should say, Broken Field Runner, not really new as well,
Okay.
but a great singer-songwriter. He has a few new singles out that are really good as well. So yeah, but my favorite band that I've discovered is a band called Lip Stitch.
Lip Stitch. Okay.
I'm on a playlist with them.
Yeah.
And I actually don't know anything about them. I don't know where they're from. I hope they're still a band because I know that this pandemic has ended a lot of bands.
It's true.
For better or for worse. But I hope that Lip Stitch is still around, but they're very good.
I'll have to check out Lip Stitch.
Lip Stitch.
I've been listening to a lot of Slingshot Dakota.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I love those two. And they had a new song come out yesterday as well.
Did they?
They did. I have not heard it yet, but I
Hold on to the why, or hold on to why. I'll have to check that out.
yeah.
Wow.
You mentioning them reminded me of that. I need to listen to that.
Yeah. Well, they have a song on one of their, I guess it was their last album, Casino Night, is like a banger that I just keep listening to on repeat. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that record. They have a song called it has blood in it. blood rival, bloodline, something.
Okay.
But I heard Carly say, we played with them at one point. I want to say it was in Pittsburgh on tour, and they were on tour and we were on tour, and we just kind of met up. And she said that the song was about dealing with relatives of yours that are Trump supporters.
Okay.
And I took her a few months later. I saw her at Fest, and I took her aside, and we stood at the bar, and I was like, I was really inspired by this song, and I've started to use that as a kind of a germ of an idea to start writing songs about that in terms of what I've been experiencing and what my wife has been experiencing. And I never told her that. So if Carly watches this, we have a song called They Poisoned Our Fathers that came out in October. And it was inspired by the song of theirs that I can't remember the title to because I'm terrible at that, but it was on Heavy Banding, and, which is a fantastic record. And so much love to Slingshot Dakota.
Maybe it's called Blood Pudding. I don't know.
It's the only song on that record that's not an obscure Office reference. Probably.
Yeah. Gosh. Yeah, it's interesting that you brought up the Beatles, because you do have like you covered like my favorite Beatles song in my life.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that was fun. It was something. I don't want to be presumptuous and say that I was going to be invited to this person's wedding, but a longtime supporter of Divided Heaven reached out and said, Chuck and I are finally getting married. We would love for you to be a part of the wedding. There's a pandemic happening. We'd like you to do a rendition of In My Life for our first dance. And I was very honored by it. Yeah. And I did it, but it was like in the thralls of the beginning of the pandemic when everybody, myself included, was going crazy. And I had forgotten that I did it. And then I rediscovered it. Because this was, I think I had to deliver it to her. Her anniversary might be coming up. I think it was like end of May when they got married. So I had the song to her by May 1st, if I remember correctly. And I'd forgot about it until February. And then I wanted to do another single, kind of a surprise single. And it made sense to put that out, but because it's not my song, I didn't want to be making money off of it, so I combined it with a charity drive for a local nonprofit here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. So
cool.
That's worth mentioning. They're called Lancaster Stands Up. They do a lot of work in the community to build a more equitable place for everybody to live and to thrive here in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. They're also heavily involved with promoting progressive policies and progressive politicians, which is what I'm big on as well. So yeah, it felt like a Beatles song would work for that.
Nice.
I guess.
Yeah.
It's worked out,
Nice. Yeah. And did you have to get like permission from Apple Music or whatever the Beatles company is?
I had to pay a one-time fee.
Okay.
And I didn't read the fine print, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
And anybody that does read the fine print, I don't believe you. So, I don't know.
Oh, that's cool.
But, yeah, I mean, anything that I've made from it, I kind of built the campaign around Bandcamp so that I could make cash directly from it.
Yeah.
And then I'm holding on to that until the end of this month, and then or June 13th, so it's like 2 months worth of money, and then I'll make the donation to Lancaster Stands Up. But any of the streaming residuals that come in from it, I'll just kind of keep track of that on a semi-annual basis, and then continue to throw some money at Lancaster Stands Up, which will be fun to do.
Cool. Well, when you make the actual donation, will you be using one of those big checks, like one of those big,
No, I don't think so, because from The Office, I learned that it's about $200 or $300 to get one of those big checks. So, no, I don't need the accolade. I'm happy to be helping something out in my hometown, in my name, but most importantly, in the name of Tiffany and Chuck, who were okay with me releasing this song in the first place for public consumption. And yeah,
well, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's just get into this, this lightning round.
Hell yeah, let's do it.
What's your favorite truck stop / gas station when you're touring?
I don't really have an answer as to why, but I would say Flying J.
Ooh, Pilot Flying J. Yeah. Okay.
I have no follow.
That's it. Next question. What's the worst punk rock bathroom you've had to go number 2 in on tour?
924 Gilman Street.
Okay.
Are you kidding me? Oh my goodness. Thank goodness it was a Divided Heaven show.
Yeah.
Not a Swimmers show or something like that, because it was a Divided Heaven show. There weren't that many people there. So it wasn't as terrible as it could have been. But also I went at the Continental in New York.
Yeah.
Which, for those people that remember the Continental Club as it used to be in New York, that was not pretty either. I'm trying to think what else. I don't know. But yeah, I would say 924 Gilman Street.
Okay. That's fair. What's your favorite guitar that you have?
I have this guitar that is a Fender Strat.
Yeah.
But I found it for $450 at the Hollywood Guitar Center. Ooh. And I was playing a new Strat that I had bought a few months before that was just kind of a sunburst. It was good. Like it was fine. But this Strat was kind of Frankenstein by somebody, and then they didn't want it anymore. For whatever reason, they, were selling it at Guitar Center. And I played this guitar immediately, and for some reason, the neck is just like a half an inch longer than it should be. And they put a humbucker in it, a double wide humbucker, whatever those things are called. And so it has more power than a typical Strat. And I don't know, it just, because it's a little longer, it just sits well with my body frame. And because it has the humbucker, it's got a little bit more power. But then it also has this kind of finicky kill switch, pickup switch.
Yeah.
That has allowed me to get some really good accidental tones, especially in the studio. And I love this guitar. It's so versatile. It can be kind of tinny and delicate, and when I want it, it can have that traditional Stratocaster vibe when you want it. But then if you want it to have some power, it has some good power as well. So, yeah, I named it Roman after Roman Reigns because it had the versatility, man.
It had the versatility. The head of the table or whatever. It
is the head of the guitar table at the Berman household. That is for sure.
Love it.
Yeah.
Oh man, what was your last tattoo?
It's been a while. I got the Strike Anywhere logo, which is a worldwide international anti-fascist logo on my foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's your worst border/customs experience on tour?
I haven't had any, thankfully. Two that come to mind. One is Canada. They didn't really detain. They took aside my drummer and said that there was somebody with his exact birthday, his exact name, that had committed a hit and run. And somebody with his exact birthday, his exact name, born at the exact hospital.
What?
Same age, same year, same everything, same hospital, same neighborhood of Woodland Hills, California, that had multiple DUIs and had been arrested for a hit and run at some point. And we know that that's not true. There was not another there was not another Salvatore Nicholas Moriali born on
the same
October
second.
October 27th, 1988. That did not happen. And so it was scary because it was like they were kind of flexing their muscle with us.
Yeah.
Like, why? Like, we're going to go to Toronto and make $25.
Right, yeah.
Let us. So that was in Windsor. I think I've been pretty good. I did a tour with Sam Russo in the United Kingdom at one point.
Yeah.
And right before I got on the plane, he sent me an email. He's like, hey, man, I was supposed to do a tour with Corey Brannon last year, and Corey told Customs that he was coming over to do a tour, so don't say that.
Right.
And I was like, literally on my way to the airport, and I was like, I didn't get a visa. I didn't get approved for anything. I didn't do anything. What was I thinking? Send a quick thing to my agent over there at the time, and he's like, yeah, are you an idiot? Like, what are you thinking? And I was like, well, you're my agent. He's like, I'm your agent in Germany, not in the UK. And I was like, all right, well, here we go. I take off, and I get to the customs agent at Heathrow, and I just start talking like a crazy person because I had my guitar, I had a duffel bag full of merch, and I had my suitcase.
Yeah.
And I went on this rant. I was like, oh, that was a great flight. Great flight. Love smooth landings. I came over. I saw the stadium. Was that Wembley Stadium? And then I kind of did the thing where you talk
sweating.
You talk to the agent on the other guy. But I just did it. I wasn't sweating. I was doing it as like like a crazy person that you don't want to get stuck talking to.
Oh, okay.
Like a really gregarious, chatty captain.
Yeah.
I was like, I think that was Wembley. Was that Wembley? Yeah, was that Wembley? Are the Olympics still going on? Because I would love to go see something if the Olympics are still going on. And they go, no, the Paralympics are going on. I was like, really? That sounds like it's even more interesting. I would love to do that. Do you know how to get tickets? Do you know how to get tickets? Do you think anybody around here knows actually how to get tickets? I mean, you guys live here, so I'm just here. So and then they were just like, stamp, get the fuck out of here. So that, I don't know. I've been very fortunate, and we've had our van searched a few times. We had a custom agent come up to us with a big wad of cash, and they were like, "We found this in your van," and I was like, "Yeah, you did," because I'm not just walking around with $5,000 in my pocket. So, and Nick, my drummer at the time, was like, "I respect that." He was honest, and I was like, "He could have just left it."
Yeah.
He's like, "Why do you have this?" I'm like, "Well, yeah. Like, do you travel with a bank? Like, no, come on, man. Like, whatever." So, but yeah, this is a shitty lightning round because I can't tell stories quickly.
No,
so.
bro.
Anyway, I'll stop being long-winded. Just hit me with what you got.
Well, yeah, and it's because you're at the mercy of these customs officers or whatever, and so you feel like you're in this like this no man's land when you're in in this little.
There's nothing worse than having to placate and be nice to people that I fucking hate.
Right.
That's the worst.
And
Yeah.
And every question they're asking you're trying not to get like trapped or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. But since then I've done everything legit.
Yeah.
Like Germany has no problem with letting you in. Anytime I've gone to the UK, I have paid to get a proper visa through the proper channels so that they expect me. Same with Canada. you don't have to pay, but you need to have a legend and a rundown of what you're doing.
Yeah.
Where you'll be, and if they don't trust you, they're gonna call the venues, and so I've purposefully never played a DIY space in Canada because I don't want that to be like a red flag or whatever.
Right.
So but yeah, knock on wood, it's been okay.
Oh man, yeah, that's good. I've heard some horror stories. Yeah, what is your favorite, or maybe like top 3 favorite wrestling matches that come to your brain?
I would say, I don't know if I could put them in order, but
or maybe ones that like affected you the most. I don't know. I don't want to say your favorites.
affected me.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think favorite would be more appropriate.
Yeah.
I would say WrestleMania 26, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker.
Ooh, yeah.
WrestleMania 6, Hogan and Warrior, and Royal Rumble 92 when Ric Flair won.
Nice.
Yeah.
What's the most expensive T-shirt you bought?
I paid about $40 for a custom-made Shinsuke Nakamura T-shirt so that it would properly fit. Because I'm kind of a smaller guy, so
Sure.
if I buy a T-shirt from the WWE
Right.
internet shop, it's going to look like either a dress or it's going to look like a pizza box. So I paid to have on a soft style T-shirt, like a really cool Shinsuke Nakamura thing.
Nice.
Designed. And I think it was $40.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's your perfect pizza?
I mean, the perfect pizza is a pizza that doesn't have anything on it, but is from a really great place. Yeah. So I would say plain, but so good that it doesn't need anything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now my stomach is growling.
You gotta have a good. You gotta have a good base.
You gotta have a good base. Gotta have a good base.
Wow, that's true. What to follow up the pizza question? What do you want on your tombstone?
On the tombstone pizza, I like the shitty kind of plasticky pepperoni that they have. Yeah, in terms of my actual tombstone, there won't be one.
I like it. You were the first person to get that like joke of like what do you want on your tombstone?
Yeah. Something I love about Eastern Europe is I call it communist pizza. Maybe
Okay.
that's offensive. I shouldn't say that, but 'cause these aren't communist countries anymore. But like, you go into the grocery store and you get their version of tombstone. That's that style of grocery store frozen pizza, and it's like the pepperonis that they put on it. It's more like salami, but it's also more like plastic in that it doesn't really melt. It doesn't bake into the cheese.
It's just sitting there.
But damn, is it delicious. It's just, it's just disgusting and it's barely food, but it's so good. So good.
I'll have to try and get me some Eastern Bloc pizza. We'll see. So yeah, we're closing in on an hour here. Do you have any parting words of wisdom or any?
I mean, I have so many, but on the spot, I would just say that I had a conversation with a friend recently who said something that struck me. He said, "I don't want to work with or be involved with anybody in an artistic sense that is not politically motivated." And I thought, yeah, that's really true. I feel the same way. So, proudly, and unfortunately, what has happened in this country in the last few years has made me that much more of a politically minded person.
Gotcha.
And I would say that if you're the type of person that is going to be online a lot and trolling people and calling out, politicians for doing stupid shit, be willing to have those conversations with the QAnon members of your family as well, because those conversations are a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
Screaming at somebody on Twitter.
Right, somebody you don't know.
So,
yeah.
The Slingshot Dakota song is called Blood Villain.
Okay.
It inspired me to write They Poisoned Our Fathers. And to the tune of both of those songs, I will say this as parting words of wisdom, is that converse, don't confront.
Ooh.
But be willing to converse with the people in your lives that you're related to or that you're really close to, that have fallen into the QAnon rabbit hole or are Trumpers or think differently politically than you, and give it your best shot. Give it your best, most polite and honest shot to try to pull them out of that. And if they're going to continue to believe that JFK Jr. is attending all of Trump's rallies and the coronavirus isn't real, and what else? Donald Trump is the second coming, and you don't need to be vaccinated, and whatever other things that they're pushing, then you can walk away and say that, well, at least you tried.
Yeah.
If you're going to pick fights online, you got to be willing to pick those fights in person.
That's true. I think those are good words to live by.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, stay on for a second, but you had options, but you decided to talk to me, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.